Most people believe that building wealth requires more money, more income, more financial products, more investment accounts, more everything. But what if that belief is exactly what is keeping them stuck? What if the path to financial stability is not about adding more to your life, but about removing what does not serve your future? Today, we are going to look at a set of financial principles that are as simple as they are powerful. They do not require a finance degree. They do not require a six-figure salary. And they do not require you to sacrifice your quality of life. These are the minimalist money rules, quietly practiced by some of the world's most financially secure people. Rarely talked about, because they are not exciting enough to sell. But they work. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. Before we dive in, let's discuss about the quiet revolution in personal finance. Every few years, the financial world produces a new trend. Index funds, crypto, real estate syndications, options trading, side hustles. The advice keeps changing. And millions of people keep chasing it, moving from one strategy to the next, never quite arriving at the financial stability they were promised. And yet, if you look carefully at people who are genuinely, quietly financially stable, you notice something interesting. Not flashy rich, not hedge fund wealthy, but the kind of people who sleep well at night, who do not panic when the market drops, who never stress about next month's bills. Their financial lives are remarkably simple. They do not have 40 investment accounts. They do not switch strategies every year. They do not follow influencers. Their financial behavior is almost boring to watch. But that boringness is by design. Minimalism, as a philosophy, is often discussed in the context of physical possessions. Decluttering your home, owning fewer things, simplifying your environment. But when applied to money, it becomes something far more powerful. Minimalist money management is about stripping your financial life down to its most essential, most effective principles. And then executing those principles with consistency, without distraction. That is what this video is about. Not 50 different tips. Not a list of hacks. But a coherent set of money rules, drawn from the principles of minimalism, that quietly build the kind of financial stability most people spend their entire lives chasing. Now, why do most people think complexity equals success? There is a deeply rooted belief in modern financial culture that complexity is a sign of sophistication, that having a complicated portfolio, multiple income streams, various financial products, all of this signals that you are serious about money. So people layer on complexity. They open a brokerage account, then a retirement account, then a crypto wallet. They subscribe to 3 financial newsletters. They track 14 different metrics about their spending. They try a new budgeting app every quarter. And in all this busyness, something critical gets lost. Execution. Because the paradox of financial complexity is this. The more systems you add, the more decisions you have to make. And the more decisions you make, the more opportunities there are for error, distraction, and behavioral mistakes. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. When we are forced to make too many choices, the quality of each decision declines. And in personal finance, where consistent behavior over long periods of time is the single greatest predictor of success, decision fatigue is devastating. The misunderstanding is this. People confuse financial activity with financial progress. They think that doing more, tracking more, investing in more things means they are getting ahead. But in most cases, it just means they are spending more cognitive energy maintaining a system that is not delivering proportional returns. So, what is the complexity trap? Think about what it feels like to have a complicated financial life. You have accounts spread across multiple banks. You have subscriptions you are not sure you are still paying. You have investments you opened years ago and never reviewed. You have a budget you set up but rarely follow precisely. Every one of these loose ends is a small drain on your mental energy. Every unreviewed account is a low-level source of anxiety. And cumulatively, they create what many financial psychologists describe as a state of chronic financial stress. Not because you are in crisis, but because your financial environment is too cluttered to feel in control. Financial stability, it turns out, begins not with more financial products, but with more financial clarity. And clarity comes from simplicity. So, what are the root causes of financial instability? If you ask most people why they are not financially stable, they will give you one of three answers. They do not earn enough. The cost of living is too high. Or they had some unexpected event that set them back. And while all of those things can be real and genuinely difficult, they are often not the primary cause of financial instability. The primary cause is something much quieter, and much more within people's control. It is the gap between what people earn, and what they keep. 1. The income illusion. Research consistently shows that income increases rarely lead to proportional increases in savings. When people earn more, they spend more. Lifestyle inflation is one of the most well-documented phenomena in behavioral economics. A raise becomes a nicer apartment, a newer car, more frequent dining out. And somehow, the person who was struggling on $40,000 a year is still struggling on $70,000. This is known as the hedonic treadmill. The tendency of human beings to return to a relatively stable level of happiness and financial stress, regardless of changes in income or circumstances. We adapt to our new normal. And then we want more. 2. The spending leak. The second cause is what financial planners call spending leaks. Small, recurring expenses that individually seem insignificant, but collectively consume a substantial portion of income. Streaming services, delivery fees, gym memberships rarely used, convenience purchases, small impulse buys. In isolation, none of these feel significant. But run the numbers over a year, and many households discover they are spending $500 to $1,000 or more on things they are barely using, or have completely forgotten about. Minimalism targets spending leaks directly. When you commit to only spending on what genuinely adds value to your life, the leaks close themselves. 3. The absence of a financial framework. The third cause, and perhaps the most underappreciated, is the absence of a clear, simple financial framework. Most people do not have a consistent system for how they earn, save, spend, and invest. They make financial decisions reactively, based on how they feel in the moment, or what seems urgent right now. Without a framework, money flows in and immediately back out. There is no structure directing it toward anything meaningful. And over years and decades, this reactive approach to money creates a perpetual feeling of financial instability, even for people with decent incomes. Now let's discuss about how the consumer economy profits from your financial complexity. It would be incomplete to talk about why people struggle financially without acknowledging the external systems designed to keep them in that struggle. The modern consumer economy is, at its core, a machine optimized for one thing: getting you to spend money. And it is extraordinarily good at its job. Every advertising platform, every retail algorithm, every credit card reward structure, every buy now pay later service is engineered with a deep understanding of human psychology. They know your spending triggers. They know how to create urgency. They know how to make discretionary spending feel necessary. The architecture of spending. Economists and behavioral scientists have documented what they call the architecture of spending. The environmental and psychological structures that guide financial behavior, largely without our conscious awareness. One-click purchasing removes friction from buying. Auto-renewal removes the active decision to continue spending. Credit cards psychologically decouple the pain of spending from the act of spending. And social media creates constant exposure to aspirational lifestyles that are explicitly designed to generate desire. None of this is accidental. These systems are the product of billions of dollars in research and development. And they are operating on your behavior every single day. So, why minimalism is a financial defense? Understanding this context is important, because it reveals something crucial. Without a deliberate financial philosophy, your default setting is to spend. This is why minimalism is not just an aesthetic preference. When applied to finances, it is a defense mechanism. It is a set of values and rules that create friction against the consumer economy's endless invitation to spend more. buy more, and complicate your financial life further. When you decide in advance what you value, what you are willing to pay for, and what you are not, you stop making those decisions in the moment. And in the moment is exactly when the architecture of spending has the most power over you. Now, let's discuss about the rules of the quietly wealthy mindset. The research on wealthy households, not the social media wealthy, but the genuinely net worth wealthy, reveals a profile that surprises most people. In Thomas Stanley's landmark study, The Millionaire Next Door, the typical financially independent household was not living in a luxury home, not driving a new luxury car, not spending extravagantly on clothing or dining. They were living well below their means, in modest homes, driving used or older vehicles, and prioritizing savings and investment over consumption. This was not deprivation, it was choice. A deliberate, values-driven choice to prioritize financial independence over social signaling. Rule 1. They spend intentionally, not habitually. Wealthy people who maintain their wealth do not stop spending. They spend deliberately. Every major expense is evaluated against a simple question: does this genuinely improve my life in a meaningful, lasting way? If the answer is no, it does not happen. This stands in sharp contrast to habitual spending, which is spending that happens on autopilot. Because you have always done it. Because it feels normal. Because everyone around you does it. Rule 2. They automate the important decisions. One of the most consistent practices of financially stable individuals is automation. Savings are automated. Investment contributions are automated. Bill payments are automated. By removing these decisions from their daily mental landscape, they eliminate the possibility of skipping them in a weak moment. Automation is not laziness. It is wisdom. It recognizes that willpower is finite and unreliable, and builds financial habits into the system itself, so they happen regardless of mood, circumstance, or motivation. Rule 3. They measure net worth, not income. Financially sophisticated people understand a fundamental distinction that most people do not learn until much later in life. Income is what you earn. Net worth is what you keep. Income without wealth accumulation is a treadmill. Net worth, built through consistent saving and investment, is the measure of real financial progress. Wealthy people track net worth. They think in terms of assets and liabilities. And they make decisions accordingly. Rule 4. They treat savings as non-negotiable. The phrase "pay yourself first" has become so common it risks losing its meaning. But the underlying principle is profound. Before any other financial obligation is met, a portion of every dollar earned is directed toward savings and investment. This is non-negotiable, not a goal, not something done if there is anything left at the end of the month. It happens first, automatically, every time income arrives. And then life is built around what remains. Another aspect to look into today is the psychology behind financial decisions. No conversation about personal finance is complete without acknowledging the psychological forces that shape how we relate to money, because those forces are often more powerful than any strategy or system. Present bias. Human beings are wired with what behavioral economists call present bias, a strong tendency to prefer immediate rewards over future ones, even when the future reward is objectively more valuable. This is why saving for retirement is so difficult. The benefit is 30 years away. Abstract, distant, hard to feel. The cost, giving up spending money today, is immediate and concrete. Minimalist money principles work with this bias rather than against it. By automating savings, you remove the moment-to-moment choice. By simplifying your financial system, you reduce the number of present-moment decisions that can be hijacked by short-term thinking. Loss aversion. Research by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky showed that losses are psychologically about twice as powerful as equivalent gains. We feel the pain of losing $100 far more intensely than the pleasure of gaining $100. In financial behavior, loss aversion creates a strange paradox. People are willing to take significant risks to avoid small, certain losses. but reluctant to take measured risks for large, uncertain gains. Understanding this helps explain why so many people avoid investing. The fear of a potential loss outweighs the rational assessment of long-term benefit. Identity and money. Perhaps the most underexplored dimension of financial psychology is the relationship between identity and spending. For many people, what they buy is how they communicate who they are, to others, and to themselves. Luxury items, branded clothing, expensive cars. These are not just products. They are identity signals. Minimalism challenges this directly, by inviting people to decouple their identity from their possessions and their spending. When your sense of self is no longer tied to what you own, the psychological pressure to spend on appearances dissolves. And with it, one of the most powerful drivers of financial instability. Now that we understand why minimalist money rules matter and how wealthy people think differently, it's time to move from theory to practice. Let's apply these ideas through 10 straightforward principles that can help anyone build real financial stability. These rules are intentionally simple. The power comes not from their complexity, but from how consistently you follow them over time. Let us bring all of this together into the concrete principles that form the foundation of a minimalist approach to financial stability. Principle 1. Consolidate everything. Reduce the number of accounts, cards, and financial products in your life to the minimum necessary. One primary checking account, one high-yield savings account, one investment account, one credit card, used for its rewards and paid in full monthly. Simplicity is not just aesthetic. It makes it dramatically easier to understand your financial picture at a glance. Principle 2. Know your number. Every financially stable person has a clear understanding of their essential monthly costs. The non-negotiable expenses required to sustain their life. Rent or mortgage, utilities, food, transportation, insurance. Know this number precisely, because this is the foundation of everything else. Principle 3. The 24-hour rule for non-essential spending. Before any non-essential purchase above a meaningful threshold, $50, $100, whatever makes sense for your situation, wait 24 hours. Sleep on it, revisit it the next day. This simple pause removes the emotional charge from the decision and dramatically reduces impulse spending. Principle 4. Automate your savings rate before anything else. Determine a savings rate, even if it starts at 5 or 10%, and automate it to transfer on the day your income arrives. This is the single most powerful financial habit you can build. Over time, as your income grows, increase this rate. Never decrease it except in genuine financial crisis. Principle 5. Audit your recurring expenses quarterly. 4 times a year, sit down with your bank and card statements and review every recurring charge. Cancel anything you do not actively use and genuinely value. This quarterly audit prevents spending leaks from accumulating unnoticed. Many people who do this for the first time discover hundreds of dollars in monthly expenses they had completely forgotten about. Principle 6. Invest in index funds and stop watching them. The evidence for low-cost index fund investing is overwhelming. A globally diversified index fund, held consistently over long periods and never timed or traded based on market emotion, outperforms the vast majority of active investment strategies after fees. The minimalist approach to investing is to set a consistent contribution, choose a simple diversified fund, and then largely leave it alone. Regular contributions, long time horizon, minimal interference. This is not exciting, but it is effective. Principle 7. Define what enough looks like. One of the most liberating financial questions you can ask yourself is this: how much is enough? Not how much can I accumulate, but how much would I need to feel genuinely secure and free? Without a definition of enough, the pursuit of more becomes endless. With a clear target, a number, a lifestyle, a level of security, financial decision-making becomes sharper. You know what you are working toward, and you can recognize when you have arrived. Principle 8. Guard your income against lifestyle inflation. Every time your income increases, Resist the automatic impulse to increase your spending proportionally. Redirect at least half of every income increase directly into savings and investment before adjusting your lifestyle upward. This single discipline, consistently applied, is one of the most reliable paths to accelerating wealth accumulation. Principle 9. Build an emergency fund first, not last. Before any other financial goal, before aggressive investing, before saving for a vacation, before paying extra on debt, build a liquid emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of your essential expenses. This fund is not an investment. It is insurance. It is the financial buffer that prevents a single unexpected event from derailing every other aspect of your financial life. Principle 10. Think in decades, not months. The most powerful variable in personal finance is time. Not the rate of return on your investments. Not your income level. Time. Starting a decade earlier, with the same income and the same strategy, results in dramatically different outcomes because of compound growth. This means that financial decisions made at 25 have implications at 55 that are almost impossible to recover from if delayed. The minimalist approach asks you to make fewer, slower, more considered financial decisions. But make them earlier, and hold them longer. So, what is the simplest truth about financial stability? Here is what decades of financial research, behavioral economics, and the lived experience of financially stable people all point to, with remarkable consistency. Financial stability is not the result of extraordinary income, not perfect market timing, not complex investment strategies. It is the result of simple, consistent behaviors, practiced without exception, without distraction, and without the constant temptation to try something newer or more exciting. The minimalist money rules are not complicated. They are not innovative. They are not going to go viral, because they do not promise overnight transformation. But they quietly, steadily work. Because they are aligned with how wealth actually accumulates. A little bit of income, consistently saved and invested, over a long enough time horizon, in a simple enough system that you will actually maintain it. That is the entire formula. Everything else, the complexity, the noise, the constant stream of new strategies, is distraction. And distraction, in personal finance, is expensive. The question is not whether these principles work. The research is clear on that. The question is whether you are willing to embrace the discipline of simplicity in a world that profits from your complexity. Because choosing simplicity, in a culture of excess, is actually one of the most radical financial decisions you can make. And it might be the most profitable one you ever make. Now, if you have made it to the end of this video, you already have something most people do not. A clear, principled framework for thinking about money. Not a hack, not a shortcut, a framework. But knowing these principles is only half of the equation. The harder half, the part that determines whether any of this actually changes your financial life, is understanding your own psychological relationship with money. Because the same income, in the hands of two different people with different beliefs, different emotional triggers, and different financial identities, will produce completely different outcomes. In our next video, we are going to go deeper into exactly that. The hidden money beliefs that were formed in childhood, that most people never examine, and that quietly shape every financial decision they make as adults. Beliefs that keep some people stuck in cycles of financial stress, no matter how much they earn. And that, once identified and reprogrammed, can change the entire trajectory of someone's financial life. If that is something you want to understand about yourself, and about your money, make sure you do not miss it. Thank you for watching.